Hi everyone, I'm back for another episode of Let's Talk About It with Rachel Mang. Rachel, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm glad we can reconnect after all the mutual things.
Yes, I'm so excited. And guys, you are in for a treat. Rachel is really an expert in the area that we're covering today. We're going to talk a little bit today about, okay, I have a brand. I know I want to work and create content or whatever it is. How do I know? And I've gone through my analytics and I know my engagement rate. I know all the things about my brand. How do I actually communicate that to others and turn that into value? Do you mind just talking a little bit about how that works, just your experience with the creator economy?
Yeah. And so for background, Gen Agency is in the talent management space. So the creators that we work with are more on the content creator side, less on athletes. So that could be anything from a finance influencer to a trick shot influencer, a cooking creator, all these different areas. And so they create content that is more like educational. Some of them are lifestyle, some of them are, just entertaining. But essentially, all those content creators, they're making this content on their channel, their TikTok, their Instagram, their YouTube, their Snapchat, whatever it is. And the way to think about it is they're like TV channels. TV channels have advertisements. And so content creators are able to have these channels that they're pumping out content consistently and have advertisements in between their regular content. So brands will pay for those. Whether it be for a one-off, which means just like one video, or it could be a series, just like this Root Note series. And so understanding, how the brands look at it versus how the talent may look at it, and then the ins and outs of understanding the analytics and how that converts to a price and how, you can be best educated to get the price that you're looking for or work with the brands that you want to. All those things are incredibly important.
I want to point out, like, I specifically wanted you on this too because you're not an NIL specific person. The NIL industry is still relatively new, but the idea of influencing and marketing and getting people to represent your brand, like, that has been going on forever. And so having a really good understanding of just what the industry looks like and how these things work rather than just NIL, I think could be really empowering. So then it's not like, oh, we had an NIL athlete,
Yep.
last week and we paid them in free or in-kind gifts. And it's like, no, I'm an influencer for the sake of this transaction. And I know that this is what I deserve and this is how the industry should be going.
Influencer economy has been around prior to this, but 2010 was really, I would say, this moment that kind of solidified social media, marketing, having influencers or mommy bloggers, things like that. And it grew up until about 2020, 2021, so COVID, where it really just erupted. And the line chart suddenly goes up at a huge peak because everybody's home. People are realizing that so much marketing and the ability to attribute where somebody sees an ad and that leading to them pay them, all that technology and all that time spent home on your phones, all of that kind of came together to make this like eruption in the creator economy, influencer marketing. And that's really when, I started partnering with TikTok and doing a number of things, understanding the algorithm. Like, to your point, like, we've seen the influencer economy for a long time. Brand deals have been around for a long time in the form of social media or even commercials and endorsements. And so now we're seeing it in the athlete and the NIL economy, where I think there are definitely, to this point, people who are, new to the industry who are, like taking on some standards that were not standard in the influencer economy. And so I always like to remind people, hey, like, this has been around for a long time. We already have a way that we do things that we've found is both successful for the talent and for the brand and for whatever agency, or in this case university, might be in there. There is kind of a set guide of how things happen and how much things happen for that has grown to this date. And so, you don't have to think about it as the wild, wild west and that it's brand new and that, you have to create these new things. It's nice because there's already something there.
How do you calculate that fair market value from just a baseline?
Yeah, fair market value is so interesting. And I think, this conversation around NIL Go and the College Sports Commission, I think it's come at such like a negative connotation almost for two reasons. One side being that there are these deals that are not at fair market value. So they're not at a value that could be replicated by anyone else who is also in that same space, size, etc. But then on the flip side, there's this protection of fair market value, that we don't want athletes to just be getting these $1 million or $100,000 deals, and these other athletes in similar situations not getting those deals just because they are not at a certain school, or not because they have one characteristic different. So fair market value is interesting, but the basis of it is really, what is a price that not only the athlete is comfortable in receiving for the amount of work that they're putting in and for the platform that they've built, but also what is a brand comfortable receiving that they will also still get an ROI from the deal, but still giving up, a certain amount of cost, or in some small businesses, it might be equity, it might be retainers, but still getting and giving like an amount that both sides are comfortable with. As far as calculating it goes, in the influencer economy, we do it really mathematically. It's really cut and paste, replicable. The main metric is CPM, cost per mile. That's cost per every 1,000 of some sort of metric. So that metric might be views, it might be downloads. In the case of banks and credit cards, it might be funded accounts. Investing, same thing. It might be cost of clicks. So there's many different metrics, or the trigger that makes a certain action the thing that, let's say, like the brand is looking for, but we do it about per every 1,000 of those things. So that's really how you calculate the fair market value. And there's tools out there. You can use a regular calculator, but as long as you know what the brand is looking for, again, whether that's views, clicks, downloads, funded accounts, whatever it might be, you can calculate your fair market value.
I love that. And I'm going to swing it back to the last episode, episode 2. If you guys are watching this cold or you don't remember from last week, that cost per mile that we're talking about, that goes back to that analytics conversation where we were saying, hey, you might want to put in your pitch deck or your media kit like impressions at this point, versus you might want to put views at this point, or likes, or engagement rate, different things like that. That can all go into this kind of like CPM like calculation that Rachel's talking about.
Brands, that's what they live by. It's not, in influencer marketing, because we understand how many views equals how many clicks equals how many downloads. And we know that the ideal customer for, let's say, Tampax might be a woman ages like 15 to, I don't know, 45, whatever that might be, and certain different regions. That is the exact customer. And so brands don't go after talent that has social media followings that are not the exact customer. So there are all these little things that pull into the analytics. But like to Sydney's point, you want to have your analytics on your media kits, or else the brand doesn't know if you're a good fit, or you waste time, trying to find out if you're a good fit, and it leads you on, it leads them on. And like either way, it's not what you want.
I love that. So like when it comes to trying to monetize or try to find brands that fit, like really accepting what your analytics are and letting them show through
Yeah.
on your
Let them
media kit
shine.
is, yeah, just let it shine. Like, hey, this is what you are. This is like how it works. I mean, for me, like I never thought that like I got a Soul Cycle thing a couple of months ago. I do not have a huge following where Soul Cycle is. I never thought they would choose me. But then when it comes through, it's like they're going through my account and they're like, this girl has like Soul Cycle and fitness and power like mantras and all this fitting. It was like exactly what they were looking for. Like, hey, we want to find someone who really loves Soul Cycle and can talk about how it is and knows people who might want to get on it. And it's like, okay, I've got all these volleyball players that I love talking to, like perfect transition. Like you really never know. You always talk about there's different types of deals and different ways that you can be compensated. Can you kind of walk through some of those and how those are approached?
Yeah. From, lowest to, let's call it like highest. Lowest could just be some sort of trade. It might be gifted content. It might be honestly a shout out from a brand that might have a more established platform or a larger platform. Those types of deals can go between brands and talent, or they can go between talent to talent, honestly, or media outlet to talent. From there, you can have some sort of like tiered structure, more like commission structure, if it's TikTok shop, or even if it's a CPG brand, like a retail, like a L'Oreal, they may give you X amount of commission off of X amount of sales. Those are kind of like the two tiers that are normally reserved on their own for smaller creators, because it's more of like a test, more understanding, we are still getting an ROI of this. The brand isn't giving up too much and not getting enough, and you're doing something but still getting something. Next, you kind of move into a mix of cash and maybe some of those other things, again, trades or commissions. cash is king, obviously. So you want to get a flat rate, is often what it's referred to. They calculate your flat rate, same with your commissions, just like the CPM, CPD. So again, that cost per mile, that cost per thousand views, cost per thousand clicks, that's how they're going to get your flat rate. Between those three areas, sometimes brands will have a mix of them. Sometimes they'll just be using one or the other. But it's super, super common to see those main three areas in the industry.
I just realized some people might not know what the CPM should be for their deal. Is there one set CPM for every brand or does it change?
It really does change. On the viewership side, so cost per views, let's say if you have 10,000 views, you divide it by 1,000, that's your CPM. Um, a lot of times brands will use a $5 to $7. They really try to stay on that on the low end, $5 to $7 per every 1,000 views of what they will pay the talent. On the higher end, you can get 10 to 20, where you're going to see that really, really high value for an action. So let's say a funded account, right? That means that a user has clicked on a link on your bio, they have opened up an account, and they have put their money in. So that's something that not many people will do because number one, they might not be looking for that service. But number two, like, you're asking them to put up money for something that they're not buying, something they're not getting that's like gratifying. So that cost per funded account might be somewhere of 25, 35, 45, 50, and something higher. So a brand might be willing to give you a little bit more for when you do have those actions taken by your followers, or there might be some sort of tier structure, but each of those kind of equates to a different value.
Okay. And for the college students out there, if you guys are business majors or marketing majors, maybe this is starting to sound like acquisition costs to you and the marketing dollars. That's kind of how this is all going into. So I'm wondering, do you have any recommendations on what kind of deal an athlete should do based off of their following or their goals with NIL? Are there any that you just shouldn't do?
I think, first of all, it 100% depends on the person, right? If there's a brand that you like I love coffee. And if Starbucks came to me and said, look, we'll do a trade deal, I would do a trade deal. And I'm,
Okay.
30, I've been a student athlete, I've worked with professional teams, I've done so many things, I have a social media following, I have a brand, and I would take a free deal from Starbucks, to be honest, because I just love coffee. And, as a student athlete, like, there might be a product that you absolutely love and live by, a certain type of pens, certain type of phone case, like a Casetify. So that's really up to you. I think as you start to get into tiers, so those commission levels, understanding, how primed, how ready is your audience to be able to buy something. Commission might actually be better than flat rate, because let's say it's a drink supplement, or it's a like a supplement, caddy holder for pills, or it's a blender bottle. If you really think that they will buy it, and the flat rate is like $500, but based on commission, if you had 20 people buy this, you would make $700. Commission might make more sense. When it comes to flat rates, though, rely heavily on your analytics. Rely on the fact that you have these followers, that this brand wants to come to you because you are the prime person that has the ideal customer that they're looking for, and understand that however many views you get, or clicks, or interactions, engagements, equals a dollar amount. If they're offering you less, find out why, because maybe they just don't have the same analytics that you have, or maybe because their product might be extremely expensive and they're going to give it to you for free, or maybe they are trying to gyp you on whatever that price is, and you can come back with them with analytics and with footing as to why you should be getting the amount you're getting.
I love that you're saying, hey, check the facts and and advocate for yourself. But that can be so scary. And I'll even say for myself, like, I'm on this podcast every week being like, advocate for yourself, ask questions, send that email. And every time it's time for me to start talking to a brand about payment, I get so nervous because it's hard to talk about money. And I think especially if you're like a college athlete, if you're a younger athlete, you haven't done this a lot, it's really hard to feel like, oh, I'm like talking to these adults, these people know more, like they already have their degrees or they've done all this stuff, like maybe I'm wrong. Or I've definitely felt, oh, if I ask for more, they're just going to drop the deal and get someone else. How do you recommend wording these emails? Like, let's say you do get lowballed, like how do you like come back and with a better offer?
Yeah. And I can speak from the other side. Like, I have been the talent manager that says this rate is too low. We need at least X. And I've been the searcher, the recruiter for the talent that says, look, our budget is this. At the end of the day, the first thing you have to remember is no matter who the person you're asking, like the person who is paying for all of this is a brand, is a corporation. So the person who is deciding per se, they don't really have a vested interest in the amount of money or the fact if they're giving it to you or not. It's their job. But second, like I know what I'm worth and I have been
Hmm.
working for it. Not just like I know what I'm worth and I want $500 and I don't have an explanation, but like I don't want to get out of bed for less than $500. You have an actual like backing and you have an understanding of your analytics and you have a true value that you want to stick to. The conversation gets easier over time. And you might be really uncomfortable with it now. I think everyone is uncomfortable talking to people about money. Unfortunately, that's how our society and like as a culture, I think humans are, especially Americans, very uncomfortable talking about money. So it's just things that I don't want to say you have to get over, but you will eventually get more comfortable with.
So you just say, like, super, like, what do you, like, I'm excited to work
Yeah.
with
I
you.
think, yeah, on the actual vernacular, definitely tell them you appreciate them reaching out to you because they did go through the process of
Okay.
searching for you and calculating an offer that might fit within their budget. And they do have a vested interest in working with you because they chose you, which means that they think that your audience
Hmm.
and you are ideal for this brand deal. So they will most likely be willing to go through some sort of negotiation. Me, as a recruiter of talent for brand deals, I'm willing to negotiate. I know it's coming. And I've seen some people like, hey, our budget's 5,000. That's what your analytics says. And they're like 20,000. It's like, I don't think we can find a middle ground respectfully, and that's okay. We will keep you in mind for XYZ deal. And sometimes the talent comes back and says, hey, look, like, I just love this brand. Screw it, essentially. And like, we will just do this deal. And sometimes the talent just says, look, like, that's my minimum right now. I'm just so bogged down with deals. Maybe it's not a quantifiable reason as to why the rate is so high. It's a qualifiable reason. And so that's totally fine. I'm not mad. No one will ever really be mad at you for that. So again, thanking them, telling them what your interest is in this deal, why it may resonate with you. So again, building a little bit more rapport and connection. And finally, just telling them, I think my rate is more in this range. And you can quantify it again by showing them your analytics, which they may not have access to, or, access things that may be a reason as to why your rate should be at that level. And then just ask again. The worst they can say is no. And the
Hmm.
thing that they'll likely do is come back and try to negotiate with you because they have a vested interest in trying to get with you. So again, it's really those like 3 to 4 parts of an email or a DM that you're sending back to them.
Oh, okay. I feel like prepped again to go back into my emails later today. No, really, like every week or so, it's a conversation. Mom, Dad, like, does this email sound good to you? Like,
Yeah.
and like, I think especially girls, especially, like, we don't want to sound,
Pushy.
yeah, it's like, oh, you're bossy, or you
But you
think you
know what?
deserve all
Like,
of this, and
we
this is
are
what.
women in sports. Like, we deserve to be pushy. And also the fact that you have a following that a brand is interested in giving you some sort of compensation to utilize your audience, like, you should be pushy. That is your audience. You took the time to build that. You took the time to create those relationships. And you're the one taking the time out of your day to create content. So you have your own reason as to why you should be a little bit pushy. And as women, I always say, like, we should have some masculine energy and be a little bit more pushy for the things
Yeah,
that we want.
yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I feel like that's everyone though. Like and like you were talking about like the NIL Go part and the new ecosystem and everyone's conversation. I think in general this idea of like athletes needing to be thankful for what they're getting and oh, like we're going to tell you what you can make and stuff just is it's an interesting thing, and I think that definitely causes a lot of athletes to be a little bit nervous when they negotiate. I think a lot of the reason why a lot of the big platforms that just connect you with the deal are so popular because it's really hard to do all this calculation and negotiation. It takes a lot of like personal growth,
Right.
honestly, and
Right. And you know
education.
what's even great? There are platforms out there that will help you calculate those things by just easily using like Plaid, which is essentially logging in, connecting your account very privately. So it's actually good. And it'll calculate those things for you. There are things that will make those pitch decks for you. There are people and also platforms that will help you find those brands, find email addresses. And The worst
Yeah.
thing that can happen is someone doesn't respond to you. Not even say no, honestly. I think the worst thing that can happen is they don't respond because it's the ambiguity of never knowing. Like, this could have been a great deal, but you never got back to me. So I think, AI is great as well. Like, I use ChatGPT and Perplexity and other AI models, Zapier, which is integrated with OpenAI. I use so much technology in my day to day to make my life easier and, to come up with these emails, honestly, that I'm reaching back out to talent or reaching back out to brands or some sort of automated, Gmail reach back out thing that you just click a button
Hmm.
on. There are so many things out there for you to make your day easier as a student athlete who has no time. But even, feel a little more confident. Like, you wrote that email when you felt good and you sent it out and you didn't even have to do it. So that takes a little bit of anxiety away.
It does. And I have actually found that once I put systems in, like RootNote, like that's sponsoring this, like once I actually got all my analytics out and I was able to see everything and really see what I was doing, or I had templates put out, or I've had experience doing this, not only was it, like you're saying, it was easier for me, but I actually think that the quality of deals and just the conversations and stuff that I've had have been better. I really do think that like getting that education and implementing it exudes that confidence and that professionalism that really does like
Yep.
money and success and all those different experience really does follow from that preparation. And the reason I brought you onto the show and the reason that we have the show in the first place. Do you have any last thoughts before we wrap up today?
I think being honest and true with yourself, like, does this deal make sense to me? Or even, does setting aside time to make content to grow my accounts even make sense for me? Do I even want to do this? Or am I just doing it because everyone's doing it because I want to make money? Those sorts of things. And then asking for help. Again, like asking a family member that you trust, like, hey, does this email sound good? Or asking someone like myself or Sydney who's gone through the motions saying, is this right? Like, what does this mean? I think that's so important because, we're not in a silo. You never know who could, be an ally, be a mentor, or even be a sponsor in the future. So I'm always a big believer in just, figure out what makes sense for you.
Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Rachel.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
Hey guys, it's Sid. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Let's Talk About It, brought to you by RootNote, the all-in-one platform creators rely on to track growth, pitch brands, and turn content into revenue. With support for dozens of platforms like TikTok and Instagram to Shopify and Patreon, you can get unified analytics, real-time dashboards, and beautiful drag and drop data spaces. For more information, go to rootnote.co, that is ROOTNOTE.co, and I'll see you guys next week.